It's almost impossible to picture what drives a man to face certain death in a hostile, unknown land. Yet that's exactly what René-Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle, did. In the 1680s, La Salle set out on a perilous journey to establish a French colony near the Mississippi River, a venture filled with ambition and danger that ultimately ended in tragedy. What began as a grand dream of empire would devolve into one of the most disastrous and heartbreaking expeditions in the annals of North American exploration. This is the story of the La Salle, Mississippi expedition. Born in Rouen, France, in 1643, La Salle was initially destined for a life of quiet contemplation as a Jesuit priest, but the pull of adventure proved too strong. He abandoned the church and set out for the New World, arriving in New France in 1667, where his ambition for discovery began to take shape. La Salle quickly made a name for himself as a talented explorer. He was part of expeditions that sought to establish French dominance in the Mississippi River Valley. In 1682, he famously traveled the length of the river, claiming all the lands it drained for France, naming the territory Louisiana in honor of King Louis XIV. He envisioned a vast French empire stretching from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, a powerful barrier to English and Spanish ambitions in the New World. To cement this dream, he would need to establish a permanent colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River. And so, in 1684, he embarked on the expedition that would seal his fate. La Salle's expedition began with high hopes. In July 1684, he set sail from France with 4 ships and more than 300 colonists, including soldiers, craftsmen, and even women and children, an entire community destined to be the heart of France's empire in North America. His mission was grand in scope: to establish a fortified colony at the mouth of the Mississippi River, secure control of the fur trade, and eventually launch an attack on the Spanish territories in Mexico. La Salle's confidence was infectious. He was certain this expedition would lead to France's dominance in the New World. But almost from the outset, things began to go wrong. La Salle's navigational skills, which had served him well in the past, failed him during this crucial mission. His ships drifted off course, and instead of reaching the Mississippi, they landed on the coast of modern-day Texas, over 400 miles away from their intended destination. It was the first in a series of miscalculations that would doom the expedition. The once promising mission was now a desperate struggle for survival in an unknown and hostile land. As La Salle and his men set up camp on the barren shores of Matagorda Bay, they quickly realized how isolated they were. They had no idea how far they were from the Mississippi, and worse, they had lost valuable time and supplies during the voyage. One of their ships, the Aimable, ran aground on a reef as it tried to enter the bay, and the majority of their supplies, food, ammunition, tools, sank with it. The loss was devastating. Desperate, La Salle ordered his men to build a makeshift fort out of the remains of the wrecked ship, and he named it Fort St. Louis. But the situation was dire. They had little food, few resources, and were stranded in a land unfamiliar to any of them. To make matters worse, they were not alone. The native Karankawa people saw the French as intruders. After initial attempts at diplomacy failed, relations quickly soured. The settlers had to fend off hostile attacks, and their numbers dwindled as skirmishes and disease took their toll. Realizing the dire state of his colony, La Salle made the difficult decision to leave the remaining settlers and seek help. He embarked on several expeditions into the wilderness, hoping to find the Mississippi and reconnect with French outposts further north. But each journey only brought more hardships. They faced treacherous terrain, unexpected floods, and swarms of biting insects. The thick Texan forests, with their impenetrable undergrowth and twisting rivers, made progress slow and torturous. The sweltering heat of the southern landscape compounded the men's misery, leading to dehydration and bouts of sickness that swept through their ranks. Meanwhile, back at Fort St. Louis, the situation worsened. Starvation and disease ravaged the colony, and the colonists' faith in La Salle eroded. Their leader had promised them wealth and security, but all they had found in this desolate land was suffering and death. Tensions boiled over as La Salle continued his inland searches for the Mississippi. His men grew resentful, bitter at their situation, and increasingly rebellious. By early 1687, the simmering discontent exploded into outright mutiny. On March 19, 1687, La Salle was ambushed by his own men. Led by a man named Pierre Duhot, the conspirators struck while La Salle was traveling in search of provisions. One of the men, a young servant, stepped forward to lure La Salle into the trap. When La Salle approached, 2 gunshots rang out. He fell to the ground, struck dead by his own men. His body was stripped and left to rot in the wilderness. With La Salle dead, the expedition quickly fell apart. The mutineers turned on each other, killing one another in a violent power struggle. Duhot himself was murdered in a quarrel just days after La Salle's death. The survivors splintered into small groups, some attempting to find refuge with nearby native tribes, others wandering aimlessly through the wilderness. The once grand mission to establish a French colony on the Mississippi River was now nothing more than a bitter memory. Of the more than 300 people who set out on La Salle's expedition, only a handful survived, eventually stumbling upon Spanish settlements where they were captured or killed. The tragic end of the expedition left Fort St. Louis abandoned, its settlers decimated by disease, starvation, and attacks from the Karankawa. Was La Salle's downfall inevitable? Was his obsession with exploration and colonization the very thing that led him to his tragic end, or was he simply a victim of circumstance and misfortune? Some argue that his arrogance and refusal to turn back led directly to the disaster that claimed his life and the lives of so many others. Others view him as a visionary, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the New World. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more perilous quests. Got an epic journey in mind that you think deserves the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember, when ambition blinds judgment, it can also be the architect of one's downfall.